Peace, love, and law. I want to take a few minutes just to talk about registration. As you know, I like study the laws and I like share where I come across and where I learn. And I want to take this opportunity. I want to take this opportunity right now for ask any police officer out there if you know feel if you know want to chime in and want to comment. Any judicial officer, any public defender, any magistrate, anybody who gets involved in those types of things, right? Um, Talking about registration, right? When we register property, right, with the state, with the government, one of the things that is implied is that the reason we're registering property is for notice of ownership, right? We want to give the public notice that there's ownership in property, right? That one of the ways we could prove ownership is through registering a property and saying who the owners are. Now, because we register with the state and the state issue one certificate of title, right? What the state also did do by issuing a certificate of title, it's offering its governmental services to enforce governmental laws, which are commercial laws. So, meaning this, if you register in the public, right, and somebody thief your car, you have the privilege of using the public laws to go and get your car back and have the public officers go help you find the car. And you have the right to do all of that, forget the public services because you registered your property. And now the government has an obligation to fulfill because you entrusted the government by registering your property in the state. So because of that, because the government is offering services and privileges to anyone registering it in the public, then the government now has an interest in that piece of property. So registration does give notice of ownership. But you see, ownership involves liability. Now that you own, now that you don't tell the public, hey, I got ownership rights in this property, this car, let's go say. The government will make sure that you do the right thing. Because now what you have now is you have a piece of property out in the public that might cause a liability, that might crash into somebody or maybe some accident. Doesn't have to be purposeful. But in case you do get into an accident or cause anybody harm or damages, the government, because they have an interest in this property, will help enforce laws, but you have to abide by the laws too, which is you have to have your property secured and insured. And that's why we say that the government push out their laws in where they want to make sure that if you register a property with them, you abide by the laws and everybody else abides by the laws because everybody's equal under the law. Now that when you do a public registration, and just to clarify, right, all on the police officers and judicial officers, if you know said that, could chime in and correct me if I'm wrong, right? Now, when we have a registration of a baby, right? Let's just say you just had a baby, you just had a family, you want to start your family and you had your first baby. You notice that you have to register your baby in public, right? You have to register it. You don't have to, but if you register your baby in public, again, the government, you register with the government is going to give you a certificate. And the certificate is going to create a public person so that your baby can eventually someday use that public name, that legal name, in the public. And you can use that name in agreements and transactions, commercial activities, public and private. Now, just to be clear, right? This public person, it's the birth certificate creates this public person, just like how a certificate creates a company, creates a corporation, creates an organization, creates a legal entity. So the public person is created for the private individual. May I just give you an example, right? In the public, or may I just clarify, in the public, everything is governed by the public, by the state, by the government, and the government is a sovereign, or the government administrates the business affairs of the sovereign state of Belize, right? Now, in the public, the king is the crown. The crown is the king is God. In the public, it's different than private, because in public it's all commercial. Every time we engage in public activity, more than likely it's going to be a commercial activity. It's going to involve Belize fiat dollars, Belize currency. Belize currency is a IOU. It's a debt instrument. It's a fiat note, promissory note by the government, promising to pay performance on anybody who hold that note. So because of that, the government has an interest in any agreement made using their money. So because the government gains interest in registration and using its money, the government can bring in charges in the name of the crown against people who offend the crown, or offend the king. And if you look at any charge sheet, or if you look at, you got a let's say you had a victimless crime, you get traffic violation, right? They'll say not wearing seatbelt, not driving without a license. These things are crimes, but commercial. They're not real crimes. They're fake crimes. They're public crimes. They're crimes that offend the king. And again, it's all just fiction, because public and private is two different things. In public, again, like I said, all these public persons, that's the birth certificate person, that's the company's corporation, anything registered entity with the crown or with the government. Now, that different than the private. The private, everybody have on God, everybody have their own belief. In private, everybody have their own private house, their own private lives. And in your private home, you are the ruler, you are the master of your private home. But as soon as you go into the public, you go into the public domain. Now you have to follow the public laws, and where everybody respects each other. So there's a separation between public and private, and the law clearly acknowledges that. That's what you call, if you want to bring something, let's say a private right, you want to enforce it. You can enforce it in the lower courts, but more than likely, you'd have to do it in the high courts if it's something have to do with a private right enforcement. Let's say you have your property in trust, and somebody is interfering in that trust property, trespassing in your property, that's not registered with the state, or it could be either way, but you want to enforce that, you have to go to high court. Why? Because if you look at the Constitution, you go to part 1, you say that it talks about the Constitution and the state, and that the Constitution is a supreme law. The state laws are inferior laws. That's why you'll notice that state laws in an inferior court, at the magistrate court, they bring charges. What then they do is the crown is bringing a charge against a legal person, and you notice the paper will have your name just as how it's spelled out in the birth certificate in all caps. They got a reason for that, because they have to make it a fictitious entity. It's called an ens legis. It's a creation of the creation of law, a creature of law. It's a fictitious entity. So we all engage, the public, we the private, engage in public activity using our public persons, our legal name, to do that engagement. And whenever the public person registers property in the public domain, the government has an interest in it. The government can make claims and charges against it. Now, if the property is not, or the crown does not hold interest in that property, then it creates a little bit of a problem. And this is what I would want to ask all of the police officers and the public defenders, attorneys, crown officials, magistrates. If you're bringing a claim, let's say you bring a charge against someone, and it's a non-violent crime, it's a commercial crime, right? Can you, in the name of the crown, bring it against the person you have no interest in, or against the property the crown holds no interest in? Can you do that? What if the interest has been secured in a private trust and the crown has been appointed trustee and trustee alone, and has been given some type of value like a bond and been appointed a trustee in order to utilize that bond as a way to offset any liabilities that might come about in the name of that legal person in the public against the crown? Meaning, again, that this might get a little bit confusing for you, but if a property has been secured and the interest has been secured and the government doesn't hold the interest and cannot make charges against it if you don't hold the interest, you could read the Criminal Code Act for that. How can you bring a claim against a person you have no interest in? And I'm talking to the crown right now, right? To the king's representative. I don't believe you can. But I would like to, well, I might be wrong, right? So I don't want to ask anyone on the crown officials if we go clear that up. Because as we can see, a lot of videos that come out, a lot of people to challenge jurisdiction. This not go nowhere. This they grow and grow and grow. People to learn law, people to learn about public and private, people to learn that every time a charge is created in an inferior court, more than likely what they're doing is creating revenue, because the government is making all these loans and it has to pay back these loans, and the only way they can pay that back is by creating revenue streams. And the best revenue streams right now is the court, because the court creates all these promissory notes, right? Isn't the national currency a promissory note? Yes, it is. So a promissory note, when you say I promise to be at court or at this date, or and then somebody signs a surety for $1,000 or $2,000, what then they do is then they manufacture money, because then the things there, believe it or not, in finance, you could take those promissory notes, which are bail bond, and you could convert it into a bond, and you could pool it, and you can pool it and make secondary marketable securities against it. This is all business finance. You could do that. Now, that's a private. They don't teach the police officers anything there. I don't know and learn that. But that's what more than likely to do. And again, feel free to make your argument or any agreements, whatever. But this ain't going nowhere. This information is growing and growing and growing. A lot of people to learn. But anyway, I just want to give the opportunity to anybody, any police officer, any crown officials, anybody who would like to chime in, agree, disagree. Let's just clear the air and figure this out, because at the end of the day, all we still there together in this boat, and this boat they sink, and we need to make sure that we save this boat, or we just go on the land. Get away from the boat and go on the land and follow the laws of the land under the Most High's laws, not the king's laws. Because the king is the sovereign in the public, but in the private, we know that the only sovereign is the universal creator. So if we serve that king in the public, you can't serve the private creator. It has to be a fictitious thing. You can't really serve the king. Come on. You can't really serve the king. He don't know you're a God. He can't give you rights. He can't protect you, really. The Most High did that. So, anyway. Just me want to throw this out there and see if anybody want to chime in. Peace, love, and law.